a nice graphic display. And I will say, Ed, your Valiant looks pretty good, although it has the characteristic visual signature of a Johnson VFO, which is a little bit heavier on one sideband, the left AM sideband, on 40 meters. Usually, you know, other bands are not a problem, but for some reason the Johnson equipment, the VFO, the built-in VFO, tends to experience some RF contamination on the fundamental frequency, which is 40 meters. So it kind of warps the signal a little tiny bit. And I don't know if you heard, I'm actually running a Johnson Ranger here into an amplifier, and I just kind of got fed up with that effect on 40 meters. So I use a crystal. I use a set of crystals here, and that just, you know, tightens everything up, and you don't even have to think about you know, the VFO drifting or whatnot. But each to his own, I say. Anyway, hope copy is good there. Ed, I'll turn it over to you. When last heard, you were at least S9 plus 10. So over to you. KA3PTX from W1GFH.
W1GFH with W3FJJ. KA3PTX. Wow, very good. Man, it's almost like a pipeline with your signal, Chuck signal. Conditions are just really excellent here tonight. And I think while Chuck was transmitting, the doorbell rang, and so I got the pizza and wings. I ran up and grabbed that. I have a remote control doorbell. Let me turn this. I did turn the audio up a little bit here on the Valiant. Maybe I shouldn't have. Hello. I see a little bass line stuff going on. Hello. Radio. There's the bass line. Hello. All right. Sorry with fiddling with that, but wow, very good comments all the way around. Could talk for quite a while, but I don't want the pizza to get cold. But anyway, good to make your acquaintance, Joe, and that's a very good suggestion. I mean, I have a full set of crystals here. I could be using the crystals on this Valiant, and I do have a K7 for 80 and 160. I have another one for 80 and 40. Unfortunately, I did something bad and blew out a part in it, so I got to replace that. But the intent was to use this Max processor with the K7 DIYs, which have much you know, broader bandwidth, and will take advantage of the characteristics of the Max processor more than maybe the Valiant. But anyway, while I was in a run of getting that other stuff up and running, I just threw the Max audio processor on the Valiant, just for whatever. Very impressive QRZ page there, Joe, and man, I scrolled through it quickly, but I did notice the German radio there, and yeah, my dad had a bunch of German radios, Telefunkens and Grundigs and a bunch of stuff, and I don't know about you, but they were a nightmare to work on. Pretty cool German engineering and all that, but some of the stuff they did there with the coils and fine wires and all kinds of stuff in there, that a little bit of PIA to troubleshoot. And let's see what else. Right down here. Chuck, I thought you went through this router business like a couple of years ago, where you had to get a new router because it was obsolete or whatever. So maybe this is I know we have here. I guess maybe a year or two ago we had to get a new router because they said the other one was obsolete or whatever. So they got you, and you got to pay if you want to play. You can get off the grid and not watch any TV or Prime Video and all that stuff, and let's go back to old school. But yeah, it's kind of tough these days. I could probably I still have a flip phone here. I could maybe get going again. It'll be a lot cheaper than I'm paying now for the cell phone. But anyhow, just one other thing I want to mention to Chuck, because he has some interest in this, and maybe you do too, Joe. I was down at the state park near me today. There was a guy running POTA down there that I always see, and but at the same time there was a state park ranger there, and I talked to him about the drone operation at Delaware State Parks, and he said that it can be done, but you have to go through the state in Dover, Delaware here, get a certificate or something, or some kind of paperwork to say that you're a drone operator and want to operate in a state park. And so that was a little bit interesting. The other thing he told me is he's got a really, this POTA operator that was down there has a really high-end drone. And he said that we live in Delaware, and of course the President of the United States, Joe Biden, lives in Delaware. Whenever he's around in the area, you can't fly any drones within like a 5-mile radius of wherever Joe Biden is. And they have some kind of thing that shuts down all the transmitters going to drones. So I thought that was kind of interesting also. All right, that's enough of a old buzzard here. I will listen out for a little bit before having the pizza and wings, but great making your acquaintance, Joe. I'm not sure if we ever worked before, but really good signal here into Wilmington, Delaware. So over to Chuck, W3FJJ with WA1GFH. This is KA3PTX. So I'll say 73, but listen out for a little bit.
I guess I'll take your place while you eat pizza there, Ed. Hello, Chuck, Joe, W3FJJ in the group WA3VJB.
Hey, Paul. Good to hear you. WA3VJB checking in with the group W3FJJ. You know, I was going to sign out, but I think I'll hang in for one more there. Say hello to you there, Paul. I'm getting hungry here. Ed's talking about pizza and wings, and I haven't had dinner yet. Anyway, good signals here. Enjoy those. Enjoy the dinner there, Ed. And yeah, you're right. It wasn't that long ago that I did have to get another router. They were trying to charge me for it, and I had to get on the phone with them with that, because when I originally got my internet service here, they gave me a free router. So everything was fine, you know. Router worked great. Next thing you know, I get an email or whatever, you know, that my router's going obsolete, and they want to charge me for a new router. I'm like, no, that's not right. So I convinced them, whatever, you know, they sent me a new router, and I didn't get charged for it, because you know. And as far as I know, I'm not getting charged with this new router or set-top box. I do pay for the set-top, rent a set-top box. Apparently you can't buy one, so you have to rent it. But whatever, hopefully it's the same price. So that's the deal there. And yeah, interesting. I wonder what Biden's got there on his drones. I mean, I wonder if the caravan, as he's driving along, you know, they got this some kind of van there that's shooting up, you know, I guess, what is it, I don't know if they run on 2.5 gigahertz or whatever the drone's frequency is. They just beam up ahead of them, all around them with this big signal to block any frequency there, or at least the frequencies they use for the drones. I wonder if they do that. I mean, it's possible. And then if you're flying one and they happen to be driving by, or your drone just like falls to the ground out of control. It's a crazy world we live in today. This technology crap. Let's see. Okay, Joe, thanks for the rundown there on the Near Fest. Yeah, well, Paul can verify this. We used to have the Gaithersburg Hamfest down this way, which was kind of the equivalent of the Near Fest, where all the AM guys would get together, and it was so much fun. But things changed. Yeah, that was pre-internet too. I mean, now with the internet and everything, guys aren't bringing out and I guess everybody's getting older too. Nobody's really looking for all this boat anchor stuff as much as they used to be. It was fun just collecting the stuff when if you could pick up something dirt cheap, and bring it home, and even if it didn't work, you could fix it and put it on the air and have fun with it. That was the best times. Along with meeting all the guys you talk to on the radio and all that. Collecting parts for homebrew rigs, and oh well. But that's still a good one up there. I know there's a lot of AMers go to that Near Fest there. So I'd like to make it up there someday before I croak. All right, let's pick up Mr. Paul there. How you doing there? What you been up to? Haven't heard you in a while. WA3VJB. W1GFH. K3PTX sign W3FJJ.
Hello, Paul. Goodbye, Paul, but good to hear you. Good signal.
Okay, Ed. Yeah, come on back if you finish your pizza there. Good signal yourself. I agree. It's kind of a pipeline among us here. This is great. W3FJJ and KA3PTX in and out. W1GFH on the side. WA3VJB. Yeah, good conditions all around. Yeah, Joe kind of called the band back together here on QRZ.com on the AM forum there. Said 7 o'clock was the rumble time, and right as we were eating our turkey meatloaf with little sweet potato chips. It's quite good watching Lester Holt there on the network, and I said, whoa, it's 7 o'clock already. So I woofed down the rest of the turkey meatloaf and sent Joe an email saying, save a spot for me, I'm coming. I actually had fired up around 5:30, make sure everything was going okay. Been out of town for about a month. Chuck off the air and pretty much off the internet for that matter, taking care of some things. So we've been on the past couple of days. We got back this past weekend and making sure everything shakes down okay, which it seems to be doing. Yeah, the Deerfield Hamfest, they had it at the Deerfield Fairgrounds for many, many years. Greg, K3EWZ, was one of the original participants in that when Hoss Traders used to sponsor it, and he had stories of the AM Corral and some of the hijinks and car fires and all kinds of stuff that miscreants would do in their 20s and 30s. Those guys got out of it, and then Mr. Mike, W1RC, kind of took custody of the franchise there and renamed it Near Fest. partly in tribute to FarFest, the Foundation for Amateur Radio, which sponsored Gaithersburg. Chuck, I'm sure you knew that. But there's a direct chain of custody there, because Mike and Cynthia used to come down for the Gaithersburg Hamfest, and would agree with you that it was the premier Hamfest in our area, much the same ilk as Deerfield had been for many years in the Northeast. The Foundation for Amateur Radio included among its brain trusts Al, KZ3AB, who used to be a fairly prominent AMer in Laurel, Maryland, but kind of got out of it when he retired from VOA. But he saw to it that we were granted space and right-of-way for an AM festival station. I guess there were probably 7, maybe 8 AM festival stations under various call signs over the years, including W3PRL, Preferred Radio Link, and the FarFest call letters. I forget what they are, whether they even still have them or not. And a series of one-by-one special event calls that we also used. Various transmitters that ranged from the DJS 750 that Dave brought down, K1, what was his calls? He's a 6 now. No, Jeff Bork, who now, by the way, is the Director of Communications for AM International. He's been named thusly by the new chairman of AMI, John, N9AMI, as Dale kind of scales back his holdings and his activities. KW1I founded the Foundation for Amateur Radio, who knows, 92, 93, probably 30 years ago. And they have about 2,000 registrants. It was announced at the Dayton Hamfest in 92 or 93, and I got certificate number 7. I know Joe's a fairly recent joiner, newcomer. I think his number is like, I don't know, 10,000 or so out of the 2,000 members. And John's trying to keep it going with some momentum on a Facebook page that he runs. And good on the router, Chuck. Yeah, we went through that too. I don't know if that's Verizon or just whom, but yeah, there's a lot of negotiation and wiggle room on your monthly fees and service charges. I tried to stick with the good old MI 424 router for many, many years because it was the last of the routers that had external RF connectors. And I put a 2.4 gigahertz high gain antenna up in the rafters of the house, and the router was down in the garage, and really got some range all the way out here to the radio lodge and all the bedrooms in the house and the downstairs. And the newer ones had lesser range, but that was before the mesh technology came in. So I've got one of the replacement routers now that also serves your smart TV, and we got it outright. They gave it to us, not rented. And including the mesh secondary router that's fed by coax from the primary router out in the garage. So coverage is high fine business here at the house. Anyway, that's enough for this one. Let me get Joe in here. Been rolling for a little while, and get a good recording up to show what the others have missed. Thanks for calling the band back together, man. Good signal. W1G. And the group, WA3VJB.
All right, I thought I heard a very weak signal in there. Let me listen for a second. Go ahead, weak signal. No, I think it was an illusion. Well, all right. WA3VJB and the group W1GFH. Very good, Paul. Yeah, well, I don't know if I can take credit for this this happening here tonight, but thanks. Yeah, my AMI certificate is very recent. My number is -10. No, it's more like 1913. It's 1913. I assume some people have dropped out or died or something, or numbers have been retired, because I imagine they've had more than 1,900 registrants on this AM International group here. I do remember it during the 90s in Southern California. There was actually a net on 3870 every Wednesday or Thursday night, and that's kind of how I drifted into AM out there. But yeah, proud certificate holder. Yeah, talking about Nearfest, during the 1980s when it was hoss traders, well, I remember people could have open fires. People were drinking alcohol. You know, it was a different atmosphere. It was a much hairier time, both metaphorically and literally. You know, a lot of young men with beards and mustaches and long hair. And what I do remember from Nearfest in the 80s, and even in the 90s and early 2000s when I would come back and attend, is that you could find the route from where you were coming from. If you know, if you were heading from the south going north, you would kind of head in the general direction, and then you would find in front of you cars with ham radio antennas, mobile antennas, these you know, Texas bug catcher deals, these big giant, you know, 10-foot whips with huge massive loading coils and capacity hats on them, and lots of little VHF antennas. You know, weird vehicles. You could follow these weird vehicles, and then, well, you were kind of, you know, home free. It was like a convoy. You didn't have to memorize the directions. And of course, this was before GPS, so you either had to know the directions or have them written down, which is, yeah, quite a thing to somebody who's never experienced that. People who grow up with the internet don't really know what it was like to get around before GPS. It was a little difficult in some respects. Trying to think, what was the name of the map package I used to use in Southern California? It was a, you know, 100-page book with maps of each segment of the city, and you know, you could look up where your destination was by a grid square, and then you would kind of line it up, you know, with the freeway that you wanted, and I think it was called Thomas's or something like that. Anyway, I'm sure they had them for other areas too, but life before GPS. That was really something. Anyway, I want to say 7-3 to Ed. I think he's long gone, but he mentioned drones. I guess Ed has a drone, and I was thinking, yeah, that must be a great thing to get wire antennas in trees. You know, I've been shooting them up with either slingshots or bows and arrows and things like that, but the real professionals have a drone, and they drop a fishing line with a little sinker on it at the very top of a tree, and it's, you know, precision bombing, man. All right, well, on that note, I think, Chuck, you're still in there. I hope you are. I'm going to send it back to you. W3FJJ from W1GFH.
Yeah, W1GFH in the group. There was a breaker I heard in there. Let me just see. Let me just stand by if he's still there. Go ahead, Breaker. Are you there?
I think part of the problem
not hearing him now
said,
either, but I definitely heard somebody in there. Anyway, it wasn't real strong. Well, it was like KL7RN or something weird. Anyway, it's W3FJJ with the group. And yeah, I recently got a drone here, but I haven't really practiced flying it yet. Actually got a couple drones. I got a real small one that's I already crashed and burned up the motor in it, and replaced the motor and burned it up again. And I got a more fancier one that I'm a little afraid to fly. I don't want to ruin it, you know. and I'm not sure if it's capable. It's a hard thing to figure out whether it has enough oomph, you know, enough to get a fishing line over a tree or not. You know, might have to experiment with it, but I actually did some research trying to figure out, like, because they don't really, they'll tell you how high they'll fly and that kind of stuff, but they don't really give you specs on these drones, like, you know, whether it will have how much, you know, lift power or torque or whatever, horsepower, something that you can get an indication of how much you can lift. Yeah, it might be able to fly, you know, 2 miles in the air, but, you know, who knows if it can lift a fishing line over top of a tree without, you know, going down. Anyway, it's something I want to play around with, but if it's doable, I'll definitely do it. If the, you know, it does have a camera on it, and I'm hoping to get some, you know, some aerial views of the the house here, and not that I got much of an antenna farm here or anything to look at, but anyway, we'll. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a hobby, but I just haven't got around to it to pursue it further, and we'll see how that goes. I had a somebody flew a drone into my side of my house. Yeah, broke my siding, cracked my siding on the side of my house. Oh, PO'd about that. I probably should have called the insurance company, because now I tried to get up there and fix it, and it's right at the top of the house, and it's a hard reach on the ladder, and I can't do it. So I got this crack in my siding. I was able to put some duct tape across it. But what a PIA. And I do have the remains of the drone that flew into it. It's probably not too salvageable. Let's see. Well, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I do remember those days of going to hamfests. You know, I started going to hamfests back in the, you know, probably late 70s, early 80s. And that was definitely way before GPS, and probably didn't even have a map. But sometimes I knew I had 2 meters. And, you know, that was one thing, you know, you find out what the frequency they were using for the talk-in for the hamfest, and you hear all these guys, and a lot of times you didn't have to check in to figure out how to get there, because there would always be somebody else on there saying, you know, how do I get to the hamfest? I'm on 495, and I need to, you know, I need to do this, what road do I, what exit, and all that, and, you know, generally you could get the info. I think PTX might have been with me that one time. I was actually sitting on the microphone by accident, obviously, but I actually I was pretty close to the hamfest, and I was sitting on the microphone. I tied up the whole talk in for the hamfest, because when I realized I was sitting on it and unkeyed, all of a sudden, you know, these people were trying to get in there. And those are the days. You know, one of my worries with this, you know, I got the new set-top box and I got the new router, and they both came with these little switching supplies. In my old router, I had a problem with the switching supply. It actually was putting out RF crap. I can't remember which frequency. It might have been here on 40 meters. But sure enough, darn thing was dirty. And I replaced it with a linear power supply, 12-volt power supply I wired up. So, you know, every time you get a new switching supply, it could be another problem in the shack here. So far, obviously it's okay on this frequency, but I'm not saying that these couple new switching supplies might generate some crap somewhere on the HF frequency spectrum. And yeah, AMI, I've never joined it. It was one of those things I thought might have been a fad, I guess. I remember it way back when it started, and I think there was another AM organization too. It kind of faded out, but anyway, I didn't really hear too much about it, and always support. I should support it. So I just looked it up here. I've got their website here and checking into it there. All right, guys. I am going to listen out here. I can hear everything from downstairs to upstairs, so I'll be upstairs getting some dinner going here. But nice to meet you, Joe. And Paul, you're sounding good. We're about 20 over 9 here in Q5. So and he said you were away there for a while, so I hope all's good, and great to hear you. And I've got a really nice mug here. It says Farfest on it. I got there at the Gaithersburg Hamfest. So I don't know where I put it. I think it's, it might be in my bathroom. Anyway, I do have a nice coffee mug. It says Farfest, whatever year it was, which is a nice reminder of the good old days. WA3 VJB and W1GFH W3FJJ. I'll say 7-3, and I will be listening out.
I didn't hear anybody else. I think Joe had the unwitting misfortune of saying the weak station go ahead. I wouldn't own up to it. So the mystery station go ahead. Are you still with us? Let's stand by for a sec. Nah. Probably listening. Yeah, right. Great signal yourself there, Chuck. Jeez. W3FJJ, W1GFH, WA3VJB making a transmission. A couple of points to comment on there before I go on to other topics too to mention. The Farfest mug. I have, I think, 3 of them from 92, 93, and I think, maybe I also have 95, because that was the year I got all that video that I think I sent you a link to, Chuck. I think you've seen that. That's on the AM subpage of archive.org, preserved for posterior. It's the raw video, actually, not only of the AM festival station, but several interviews along the promenade of key vendors of vintage gear, including Howard Mills. Nice interview with a before and after demonstration of his restoration prowess on the 75A4 receiver. Someone had dropped one off to be restored. That was the before picture in the interview. And another one was there on display, either being delivered or for sale. That was the after picture. So pretty good footage of Howard's work there. Stands head and shoulders above just about anything I've ever seen on his handicraft. The fishing line and antennas, I guess you would use the same strategy we used with bow and arrow, with a drone of unknown load capacity, to take some really lightweight monofilament, 5-pound stuff, and use that to actually place in the tree, and then hoist your 30-pound monofilament up with the tied off end of the lightweight stuff. and then use that heavyweight stuff for your actual support rope. It's a complex series, but it's been very effective at placing the arrow across just the right branch. It's trying to hoist aloft all that 30-pound monofilament on its own. So I'm sure a drone would be capable of a pretty significant distance of 5-pound monofilament and altitude to get that up and over a tree. And you guys were talking about the presidential motorcade and whether they have blanking technology. Yes, they do. I'll send you a picture of the specific truck that accompanies the presidential motorcade. Been in a couple of them where that truck was along for the ride. It consists of two flat panel antennas and some wideband transmitters. It was originally developed before the days of drones for improvised roadside bombs that could be triggered remotely. And these transmitters on board this truck, which looks like a great big, flat black SWAT truck that shows up at the scene of some hostage situation. Except it's got this array of antennas on it, including these two very distinctive flat panel verticals. And that's what they use, very close to the presidential limo itself, to blank out anything in the vicinity, probably including drone signals, although I understood that they also changed the geofencing on most registered drones for presidential and VIP travel, at least around D.C. I hear somebody on the high side there saying something. I'll ignore that. But the geofencing itself changes boundaries, either goes up or is not there in the case of the Delaware residents. That actually tells the drone you can't go there if you're a registered operator of such a drone. In my line of work, of course, you have to have commercial licensing to be in some of these areas, like around the bridge debris where the shipwreck took place and all that. But yes, they do have electronic countermeasures, they call them. And on AMI, yeah, that when Dale first came up with it, it was intended to be a successor to SPAM, the Society for Preservation of Advanced Modulation. I was sworn into that group by the founder, Hoisey Hoisington, W4CJL, around about 1977 or 76 or so. And then he got old and infirm and passed it along to some successors who didn't have quite the diligence at maintaining a club, and a lot of the records were lost and things fell apart. And Dale kind of rose to the occasion with AMI, which itself had descended from a California group that I think, Joe, you might have known about. AM International, I think, was a California entity that went defunct. And Dale grabbed the name and made a national organization out of it. And he always said it was intended to be more than just a wallpaper club, a certificate for the wall. And yet he never got into the kind of regulatory activism on behalf of AM that I always envisioned it being effective at doing. And about that same time, the internet websites started coming up that provided a rapid means of distributing information and calls to arms. And AMI was indeed more of an affinity organization where they had the gatherings, scheduled gatherings on 75, and they also did it by region, California and Mountain States, Midwest, Eastern, much like the CCA gatherings on first Wednesday AM night. So it was viable, and it's maintained its following. And yeah, I think John N9 AMI, the new founder, or the new CEO, taking it from the founder Dale, is intending to weed out those who have passed away or become inactive to get a firmer number of how many people are still active or wish to be active in AMI. And on routers, yeah, that's interesting that they should try to charge you for something that they gave you to begin with. As I mentioned, I think I may already have commented on that. There's a lot of negotiating. I find the most effective venue to negotiate with them is the confounded chat box for Verizon Fios. You usually get people where English is a second language, and they have scripts that they trot out to plug into your questions. Once you get past that, they actually can be fairly effective at solving your problem if you express it in terms that allow them to muddle their way through. Much better than a phone call, much better than an email. And I'm sitting fairly pretty here as a result of being able to negotiate it. And Joe, yeah, on Nearfest and the comments that descend from Deerfield, yeah. I guess we all get a little bit older and a little bit slower. I wish I'd gone to some of those early ones. First Deerfield I went through was the last one that Hoss Traders sponsored. I think I was 92, where I first met Gary, W2INR, then N2INR. We polished off a few bottles of the red stuff ourselves there, sitting in snow flurries under the pine trees at Deerfield. Man. I also went to the one that was in Rochester, New Hampshire, when they lost the Deerfield site. I don't know if you go every year or not, but one year they had it somewhere else. And I think the town was Rochester, New Hampshire. Not nearly as good. There's something about the Deerfield venue with the pine straw to walk on, and I don't know, the whole scene was just really, really nice. So back to you, Joe. Guess it's the two of us in here, unless there's any other stations wish to join. Excellent signal you got there, my friend. W1GFH. And see you later, Chuck. Thanks for letting me in here, and good to visit with you. W3FJJ signed. WA3VJB. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, listening but nothing heard. 73 to you, Chuck, and WA3VJB. Back to you, W1GFH. Let me see, the Rochester Hamfest. I sort of remember that. I think we called it Deerchester, or the denizens of it called it Deerchester because it was just after Deerfield and Hoss Traders. When it was Hoss Traders, nobody called it Hoss Traders. They just called it Deerfield. And, it got moved around. They lost the venue, and it became Deerchester, and then kind of went back to Deerfield and then moved somewhere else. And, through the years it's come back, but now it's Nearfest. And I know there's a lot of effort behind that particular branding, but I don't use it. I think of it as Deerfield. It'll always be Deerfield to me. Call it what you want, but it's the Deerfield Fairgrounds. It's those pine trees, those magical pine trees, and the equipment that was under them for years and years and years. Let me see, Xfinity. I've had pretty good luck with them. I don't have any experience with Verizon, but Xfinity, actually the tech help is pretty good. I have had good experiences with them, believe it or not. I'm not sure. I'm sure they're in India or some other country, but, fair enough, they did well when I had to consult them. As far as routers go, yeah, the common knowledge is that, you're paying a rental on a router that's only worth a couple $100, and, you end up paying $1,000 for a router. Which I'm still renting, but, my excuse is that it's such a pain in the ass to set up. When you get that router and you set it up, from the original equipment manufacturer without Xfinity's help. It really is rugged, so I don't want to do that. And, Paul, I didn't know you were a router hacker. I was... I had considered hacking my router at one point to put additional RF outputs antenna ports on it, so I could, set some directionality up in terms of the signal, the coverage area of this Wi-Fi system. But never got around to it, and was kind of scared to go into it and hack it up, to be honest. But to the rescue came Wi-Fi extenders. Very simple technology, and they've become very affordable now. And they do a good job. So, you plug them into your outlet upstairs or garage or wherever, and you suddenly have a signal. So, more power to them. Anyway, 73, Chuck, and hope you get that resolved. The router problems, man. Let me see. Electric radio during the 90s, I was going to comment. I remember SPAM, Society for the Preservation. I mostly remember electric radio. I did subscribe for a while. I think it was during the late 90s. Yeah, that must have been it. And again, this is before the internet really started to come into its own. So printed magazine was just, it was luxurious to be able to read articles, and look at photos and stuff. And they had classifieds. I don't know if you remember that. Electric radio had classifieds. People were selling their B&W transmitter, needs work, that sort of thing. So, good memories anyway. So, Paul, did you go to the Nerd Prom last month, or what's the deal there? WA3VJB, W1GFH.
No Nerd Prom. I just had some stuff going on out of town to get to. W1GFH, WA3VJB. Yeah, the router that I connected the external antennas to was actually stock with external antennas. It's kind of like these household surveillance cameras that have antennas on the back of them. Nice SMA connector. I think it's a reverse connector. The chassis mounting connector has a pin in the center, as opposed to many two-way radios where the chassis connector on the top of the radio is a hole for the rubber antenna to screw onto. So I got some really low-loss coax, and for about a 15-foot run at 2.4 gigs, gain antenna up in the rafters. And I think it was a 6 dB gain antenna that I actually got at Dayton many years earlier. And that vastly increased the range of the router, but only on 2.4 gigs. So a couple of things happened in the time since, is that 5 gig came along. And that's been very nice to use for, I don't know, this little slot bucket underneath. I don't know if you're hearing that or not, but it's kind of annoying. So listening to synchronous detection stereo. And now I just switched it back over to AM mono, no sync. So I can hear which side of center frequency they're on. It's coming into the left channel. Kind of annoying. It's like a mosquito. And yeah, the early days of electric radio were fantastic. I think the earliest issue I had was late '89 under editor and publisher Barry Wiseman, N6CSW. And I really thought he was onto something, a neglected part of the hobby. Of course, it wasn't necessarily an AMers magazine, but a substantial, if not majority amount of the content had to do with AM on HF. But there was a certain amount devoted to military radios and other non-AM related, like CW transmitters, both homebrew and vintage. But he had a thing going where he had identified a market, and it was quite popular for quite a while. And I think he started having health problems and handed it over to Ray Osterwald, whose cause I can't remember. And he now has had his own set of health problems, and I think a fall off in subscriptions that has turned ER into a bi-monthly. I discontinued my subscription Oh, even before that, but soon after Ray took custody of it, because I was getting my fix of printed material words on the internet forums, and the printed page was no longer as relevant, immediate, or as interesting, because the articles started repeating, and there was a very significant rise in old military gear, and except for the T-368 and I guess the R-390 and 390A, I didn't have interest in the SRC or all the other nomenclature the old military radio collector's net discusses at great length on weekend mornings when they fire up. I don't know if you ever worked Norm or not. N3RZU had himself an official government surplus military Humvee, one of the first ones that made it to civilian hands. And he also was a member of the Military Radio Collectors Society, not necessarily amateur radio operators, but those who populate their old World War II Jeeps and other, half-tracks, 4x4 trucks with the correct radios of their era. And Norm had this Humvee painted in correct colors. And he actually had some movie scouts hire him and the vehicle out as extras in filmmaking, movie production. And he took it with him to Arizona. He's out there now, but I say that by way of my my tangential association with military radio folks and how many features they were able to get into electric radio for a while. And they are really into it. They can cite you chapter and verse of the various radios that continue to be on the surplus market, far less versatile for amateur use than their military application, most recent digital protocols, encryption, non-serviceable parts, yet there still is a significant following. So I don't know if that's making its way to electric radio or not. Whoa, somebody dropped 95. Oh my, I wonder who that's going to be. Is that a bottom of the hour broadcast? It sure is. I can hear him now. Let me kick it back to you, Joe, in case we need to move. W1GFH, WA3VJB.
Yeah, okay, Paul, WA3VJB, W1GFH. You can hear that broadcast station start up, I think. Well, there they are, yeah. Let me see. Well, I can plug in another crystal. Do you want to go down to 85 or what?
Let's see. I've got you on the low side in the clear, not a problem. If it's annoying, sure, I'd be glad to go down there. It looks pretty clear.
Did you say 85?
Yeah, I'll see you down there. I'll tune up and drop you a carrier. W1GFH, WA3VJ, BQSY 7285. Yeah, let's see here. Everything seems to be good. That was the BBC. They were announcing some sort of program schedule. I heard it on the receiver here at the house because it's set to wide. So I thought it was like Radio Peking or somebody. They seem to be popular here too. W1GFH, WA3VJB. Are they here?
Okay, let's see. Yeah, 7285. W1GFH. Let's dip the phone. I guess I don't really need to do that, do I?
And it looks like I've got a fairly healthy signal up through Vermont, as well as down into North Carolina, where W4GUZ has a node that I seem to hit fairly reliably, and I know the band's got some life in it. And do you think you were proven correct that the aftermath of the solar flare has helped our propagation this evening? I have forgotten what early summer conditions sound like here on 40. I know we've been having an awful good ride here about the past year's time. I know I've gone through an entire annual cycle. And I know that the tilt has taken place on 10 meters, where VK and South America and Northern Europe, China would be coming in on 10 now, more so than the UK and east-west to California and the Pacific time zone, Hawaii and all that. It's tilted now. Probably won't come back till September. So anyway, yeah, glad to have fired up tonight. I hear a slop bucket stomping at the gate, so they're probably going to take over here and run roughshod over our QSO, you know. Back to you for a final, and I'll look for you again real soon. Hope it's not as long. W1GFH, WA3VJB.
All right, I thought I heard a little key up, little carrier key up there, but no, it is not to be. So, yeah, Paul, I have not been on during the daytime simply because the propagation is not in there to support it. There is sometimes propagation between 9 and 11 a.m. and then there's kind of a
Your
sharp
crystal's
cutoff.
really good.
And when I would tend to listen to 40, it would be 1:30 or 2 p.m. And I just don't have any propagation during my tests. I will key up a carrier and listen to various web testing hours. It's just not there. As a matter of fact, I think I heard Pedro calling CQ one day, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and it was like he was in Timbuktu. Just not going to happen. So, and the band does congeal for half an hour or so, but it kind of drifts around. It's not any particular time, so it's hard to schedule a QSO or just catch in the afternoon on 40. It's still a little bit unstable, but who knows? Anyway, regarding watchmakers, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with anybody else's watch. I can risk breaking the stuff that I have, but I'm not going to take anybody else's. But there are some watchmakers that specialize in Seiko, definitely around your place of residence there. Not that expensive, I think. If you had some piece that you wanted to repair that date function, I'm sure they could do it for not much. But yeah, I can pass along the info if you want. Anyway, Paul, good. You got me on 40 meters. What can I say? Let me see. I'm looking at the web SVR here in the background. It looks like there's somebody just above us, so who knows? I think I'm gonna cue our ticket. But
can you hear me strapping you?
And we will see you down the line. Hopefully. WA3VJB, W1GFH, 73.
You must just be looking at the waterfall instead of listening. I was seeing if I could strap you or not. Your crystal is very close to frequency, by the way. I've checked this rig, and it's really close, and you're within about 2, maybe 3 cycles from me. The beat note is 2 or 3 cycles per second. So, man, that's a good crystal. Better than 90. 90, you were a little low, maybe 100 hertz. So 85, just FYI, is spot on. If we ever needed to try to quorum radio Peking or whatever, you'd be the guy to do it. We'd do a top of the hour back time, and mess with them a little bit. Yeah, okay, yeah, pass that along about Seiko. I recently came into an Atmos camp, if you know what that is, ATMOS.
He might just get strapped.
He has there's a barometric drum on the back of it, and when barometric pressure changes, it winds the clock. Well, every 20 years or so, you need to align and clean the mechanism.
And you could tell him he just got strapped.
So it's going to be one of those things I'm doing anyway when it comes to watchmaking and maintenance. Anyway, good to hear you. I'll let you pick up Daryl there and go with it from there. If you got any more time, can you go get me a drink of water? Daryl, I can't remember your calls. I know you obviously. W1GFH and I were both headed for the door, but I'll say good evening to you. WA3VJB, go ahead.
It's Kilo Delta 2 Alpha Foxtrot Lemur. Or just remember, American Football Lead at your service.
There you go, KA2AFL. Good signal into Annapolis this evening. WA3VJB. We'll see you, Daryl.
Daryl, very good. KD2AFL, W1GFH. And I know you're the New Jersey station. Well, that's what you usually say. KD2AFL on the gate. The New Jersey
That's
station.
right.
Oh boy, somebody trying to strap you. Yes, I am the New Jersey station on the gates, BC1T, the super transmitter, my super transmitter.